People started falling from the sky by close of the decade. They were never clothed, always naked, always a petrifying grin on their faces. It had been just a few at first, but then hundreds and thousands would fall at a time, destroying cars, homes, blocking off highways. Strange discoveries were made upon research. They were human, but lacked any blood, intestines, even a heart. No one could explain the hideous grins they had, or even when they came from. It was a woman in Costa Rica who made the latest and most disturbing discovery. She recognized one of the falling bodies as a long-dead relative, one who died back when she had been a teenager. Then more and more identifications were made. Soon people were picking up their long-dead loved ones among the video feeds, cadaver piles, and crematoriums. No one could explain why they were coming back, falling from the sky. Even more distressing, after disposing of the bodies, it wouldn't be long until that same body came plummeting from the sky again. You could not get rid of them, no matter what. People were getting killed by the higher volume of falling bodies, and soon after burial, they too began to fall. My mother was killed when a body landed on her car, crushing her. The next week, the news reported on a body that had gotten lodged in an airplane windshield. I saw my mother's grinning face, the happiest I'd ever seen her. They say, when hell is full, the dead shall walk the earth. But what about heaven? I don't know why I looked up, but when I did, I saw him there. He stood against my window. His forehead rested against the glass, and his eyes were still and light, and he smiled a lipstick red, cartoonish grin. And he just stood there, in the window. My wife was upstairs sleeping. My son was in his crib, and I couldn't move. I froze, and I watched him look past me through the glass. Oh, please no. His smile never moved, but he put a hand up and slid it down the glass, watching me. With matted hair and yellow skin, and face through the window. I couldn't do anything. I just stayed there, frozen, feet still in the bushes I was pruning, looking into my home. He stood against my window. "Where are you?" I scream, panicked. I run through the abandoned farm. I can't find her. Not in the old house, not in the barn. I run into the empty field, heart racing. As I scan the area, I run into a mound of dirt and trip, sprawling to the ground. Getting up, it hits me. Abandoned farm. I tripped over freshly tilled earth. Crouching down, I start frantically clawing with my hands, scooping handfuls of dirt. I hit something hard. Wood. "Are you in there?" I cry, pressing my ear to the wood. I hear muffled cries. I start digging again, but realizing it's taking too long. Looking around, I see a garden shed. I sprint to it, ripping the door open. I see a shovel still caked in dirt, probably the same one that the bastard buried her with. I grab it. Running back, I start digging with purpose. Soon the wooden box is exposed. I toss the shovel and rip open the crate. She stares back at me, eyes wide, bound, gagged, but alive. I sigh with relief. Thank God. I reach into my bag, pulling out my rag and chloroform. I crouch down, placing it over her face. She struggles, faints. I toss her over my shoulder. "Ah, hell," my brother says, as I walk back to the truck with a smirk. "You found her." "Yep." "You almost had me, though." I laugh. "All right, my turn. Where did you put her?" I gesture to the creek ahead. "Somewhere over there. Drowning's an issue, though, jerk," he says, running off. I smile, watching him go. I love adult hide and seek. Look, I'll be the first to admit I'm a complete bastard. I'm also lazy. I'm only here to find the idiot, because there's always an idiot. This support group is pretty typical. We connected online, decided on a quiet place, and now we're all sitting cross-legged in a circle. Real kumbaya crap. Jerome takes the lead, pouring everyone a cup of tea as he starts. "I'm Jerome. You can drink your tea, but only after explaining why you're here. I'll start. Jerome tells us he's never been loved. and I can see why. The guy's ugly as sin. He sips his tea while the mousy chick speaks next. Mayu, she says. My parents, short and sweet, no blubbering. You gotta admire Mayu. She's probably not the idiot. Next to talk are a legless veteran, a broke businessman, and a needle track junkie, and then a diseased old crone. Then it's my turn. I'm an ass. Everyone hates me. I take a loud, annoying slurp of oolong as the fat kid with a black eye goes next, telling his boring fat kid sob story. Afterwards, we're all sitting quietly when Jerome keels over. Then Mayu's eyes roll back and she slumps forward. Only the fat kid reacts. What's happening, he whines. I thought this was a suicide support group. Found the idiot. It is, I say, spitting out my mouthful of tea. They support it. No one wants to die alone, kid. Oh, how ghost white he turns, looking into his cup. I love it. These suicide meetups are a sadist dream, and I never have to lift a finger. I told you I'm a lazy bastard. I bought a new house in the small town of Winthrop. The house was cheap, but the most important part was that I needed to get away from the city. A few months ago, I had a run-in with a stalker. While I had managed to get him arrested, I couldn't shake the feeling of eyes just constantly watching me. I felt like there were eyes everywhere, at home and on the street. So I decided to move out into the country to somewhere with less people, just for peace of mind. The house itself was big and somewhat old, but otherwise very welcoming. The agent who introduced me to the house had been required to mention that a serial killer had lived here in the past, which was why the house was so cheap. However, he, and later my next door neighbour Sarah, both told me to pay that no mind. 4 other owners had lived in the house since then, and all of them were very happy with it. I loved the house. Its interior furnishings were beautiful and very comfortable. The people of Winthrop were friendly, often bringing over freshly baked pasties or inviting me over for dinner. Get-togethers, they say, were the key to making sure everyone who lived in Winthrop loved it there. Yet after a week, I stopped loving it. The feeling of someone watching returned. Worse than before, I tried to ignore it, but soon after I started losing sleep. Giant bags grew under my eyes and I began yawning almost as much as I breathed. Sarah was kind enough to let me stay in her house a few nights. It was during this time that I heard the legend of Forrest Carter, the serial killer who had lived in my house. While no one knows his exact kill count, Carter, also known as the Winthrop Peacock, was a man with an extremely severe case of narcissism. Legends say that he couldn't fall asleep if he didn't feel like he was being watched. He was finally arrested for putting up a scarecrow to watch him during the night. Only it wasn't a scarecrow. Carter had murdered a 17-year-old girl, just so her corpse could stare at him. The story gave me shivers, and after I went home, I felt like there were hundreds of pairs of eyes just watching me no matter how I turned. Today, however, was the first day that I acted on. I was cooking breakfast when I felt the eyes. Instinctively, out of fear, I drew my kitchen knife, which lodged itself into the wall. As I pulled it out, I found myself staring at a pair of eyes, pickling in formaldehyde. I've been watching the police peel away the drywall of my house for hours now. So far, they've found 142 pairs of eyes in little glass jars. The scariest thing is, each and every one was staring at me. I watched as my soon-to-be father-in-law held his daughter's hand as he walked down the aisle. Tears streamed down his face as the wedding march that played in the background reminded him that, in a few minutes, he would be watching me hold his daughter's hand and slipping on her ring. He walked up to the altar and I took hold of her hand, grinning from ear to ear. It was the happiest day of my life. My bride's father got down on his knees and started begging, "Please, I did what you asked. Just please give my daughter back." I glared at him. "Shut up and stop ruining the moment. If you sit back down and enjoy the ceremony, maybe I'll tell you where I've hidden the rest of her body."